Have you ever stopped to wonder, what if I told you that your brain was actually programmed before you even knew what thinking was? Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating, honestly kind of hidden reality about how our minds operate. We're going to break down this invisible mental cage that holds so many of us back, and we'll do it by looking right at the source code of our own biology. So think about this for a second. What if the anxiety, the overthinking, the constant procrastination, and that heavy self-doubt you might experience daily, what if none of that is actually your fault? Most people never realize this. We spend our entire lives thinking we're just lazy or weak, or maybe we just lack discipline. But what if all of that is literally just a silent script that's been running in your nervous system since childhood? Here is the absolute truth. You are not broken. You are programmed. The scariest part about feeling stuck in life is that your brain is actually doing exactly what it was trained to do. And unless you understand this invisible programming, you're just going to live your entire life inside a mental cage that you can't even see. So today, our goal is to make the invisible visible. All right, let's dive right into section 1, the invisible mental cage, and take a look at the daily cycle of an overwhelmed mind. Okay, let's unpack this. You might heavily recognize your own daily reality right here. Imagine waking up every single day feeling mentally exhausted before your feet even hit the bedroom floor. Your mind is already racing, right? You're overthinking conversations that haven't even happened. You constantly feel like you're somehow behind in life. So you end up scrolling on your phone for hours, just actively avoiding the important work you absolutely know you need to get done. You promise yourself, okay, tomorrow I'll be different. But then tomorrow comes, and you repeat the exact same loop. And listen, this doesn't happen because you want it to. It happens because your brain is biologically wired to repeat this pattern. To understand exactly why that is, let's move along to section 2, your brain's survival wiring, and uncover the roots of our childhood conditioning. Let's look at this concept of subconscious conditioning. When you were a child, your brain was basically in this highly absorbent state, kind of like a giant sponge. You weren't really learning how to think logically yet, you were learning how to feel. You learned how to react to stress, how to respond to fear, how to seek approval, and ultimately how to avoid pain. So if love ever felt conditional to you, or if making a simple mistake felt dangerous, or even if a chaotic environment just felt normal in your home, well, your nervous system adapted to handle that. And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict we face every single day. On one side, you've got your conscious intention, right? You want happiness, you want purpose, and you want to grow. But on the other side, you have your brain's deep underlying programming, which adapted strictly for survival, avoiding pain and seeking safety. Your nervous system didn't adapt to make you happy. It adapted to keep you alive. And those survival patterns, when we don't examine them, well, they become the lifelong mental prisons we were just talking about. So how does this actually play out in our biology? Let's transition into section 3, the science of survival, and look at the actual biology of your stress response. Deep inside your brain, there's this tiny almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Its main job is to detect threats. But here is the massive problem. Your amygdala literally cannot tell the difference between a real physical danger, like, say, a wild predator, and a stressful, passive-aggressive email from your boss. It just can't. It also cannot distinguish between a real trauma from your past and a hypothetical worry about your future. Let's walk through this timeline to see exactly what happens in your body. First, a threat is detected, whether it's real or entirely imagined, and the amygdala triggers an immediate response. Second, this releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that just floods your entire body. Third, because of the relentless pace of modern life and our unexamined programming, we enter this sustained state where those cortisol levels stay high for years. And finally, we hit the rewiring phase. Through a fascinating process called neuroplasticity, your brain actually physically rewires itself for anxiety, overthinking, and fear. It literally becomes your new normal. And because your brain is essentially trapped in this constant low-level survival mode, it develops coping mechanisms. We're talking about checking your phone every 5 minutes, feeling intensely uncomfortable when you're just sitting there doing nothing, procrastinating on your biggest goals, feeling totally restless in silence, or just endlessly overthinking and daydreaming. You might look at these things and think, "Ugh, I just have bad habits," but actually, scratch that. They aren't just habits. They are coping mechanisms your brain installed specifically to help you feel safe. Your brain learned to chase these tiny hits of dopamine from scrolling or snacking, not to give you purpose, but simply as a quick escape hatch. Which brings us to a really crucial realization. You are addicted to avoiding uncomfortable emotions. This is the twist that most people completely miss. You aren't actually addicted to distraction. You're addicted to avoiding the heavy, uncomfortable emotions stored up in your nervous system. Your mind isn't weak. It is actively protecting you from feelings you haven't processed yet. And this right here is exactly why motivation usually fails. The core problem isn't laziness at all. It's unhealed emotional memory just quietly running in the background.
Let's move along to Section 4, the default mode network, which is essentially the engine room of all your overthinking.
So, the default mode network, or DMN, is a specific network in your brain that fires up the exact moment you stop actively focusing on a task. And what does it do? Well, it immediately defaults to replaying the past, predicting the future, and creating totally imaginary scenarios. It's the ultimate fuel for your overthinking. And here is the trap we fall into. The more time you spend living inside this network, the less time you're actually living in the present moment. And naturally, the more mentally trapped you feel inside that invisible cage.
But hey, there is some absolutely incredible news here. Let's look at Section 5, the power of neuroplasticity, and how we can actually go about rewiring your nervous system. The very same biological mechanism that trapped you, neuroplasticity, is the exact same mechanism that can set you free. Yes, your brain absolutely rewires itself, but here's the catch you have to remember. Neuroplasticity rewires based on repetition, not intention. You can't just wish or motivate your way out of the mental cage. You have to actively change what you repeatedly do in order to signal safety back to your nervous system. So, how do we actually pull that off? Let's move to our final section, Section 6, retraining your nervous system, and explore some practical, science-based solutions for finding peace. Let's move through these and see how this builds. Here are 6 concrete steps to really rewire your brain. First step, silence. Just 10 minutes daily without any distraction to help calm that amygdala down. Second, breathwork. Slow, deep nasal breathing literally sends a physical signal to your nervous system that you are safe. Third, a dopamine reset. Try to reduce instant gratification every day so you can relearn to enjoy simple pleasures. Fourth, visualization. Mentally rehearse a calm, confident version of yourself, because remember, your brain actually can't tell the difference between that and reality. Fifth, journaling. Write out your feelings to finally process those stored emotional memories. And sixth, repetition. This is absolutely crucial. New neural pathways form through repeated calm experiences, not just one random burst of motivation. If you start applying these steps consistently, you'll reach the ultimate realization. Peace is simply a trained nervous system. Confidence is just rewired neural pathways. You were never meant to live your entire life in survival mode. You were meant to live in awareness. And the moment you truly grasp this, you can finally stop blaming yourself for being lazy or broken, and you can start the genuinely beautiful process of retraining your brain. We'll leave it here with this final provocative thought. You were never broken. You were simply programmed. But now, you know the code. The mental cage you've been living in is totally invisible, but the key to unlocking it has always been right there in your mind. So the only question left now is, will you use the key?
If this video added value in your life, please like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to Mind Reprogramming.